Hello, everyone. I am Corey Andrew Powell, and I am joined today by Joshua Canter. Now, Joshua is the founder and director of True Nature Education and True Nature Travels. True Nature has been a pioneer in the global travel and adventure, culture, service, and educational travel industry for over 10 years. Joshua, it's a pleasure to have you here today. So, thanks for being with us on Motivational Mondays.
Hey, Corey, thanks so much. So grateful to be here and excited to connect with you today.
So, Joshua, to begin with, I would love to hear more about True Nature for those who don't know what you guys do and what the True Nature traveler can expect.
Yeah, so True Nature Travels, we're an experiential travel company, and our focus is to support our travelers in having transformative experiences, traveling the world, and experiencing the world through the eyes of their own true nature. And so True Nature has a double meaning, and True Nature, first of all, is representing the true nature of the environment of the different places we visit all around the world, and we
Mm,
utilize the true nature of the places we visit to reflect our own true nature. And so
right.
basically, our mission is to create these experiences that open, one's eyes, one's mind, one's heart to their own true self. And we do
Hmm.
that through experiential learning experiences that incorporate, service learning, adventure, leadership, and also mindfulness. And so, every trip is unique and every one of our travelers is unique. And our goal is to, really meet everyone where they're at, creating, accessible and, memorable life-changing experiences, ideally.
And so, ideally, it's not like just going to a foreign land and chilling out by the hotel pool and staying inside the, inside the hotel for a whole week. This is like immersive, right, within the different cultures. And so, interacting with the people, the natives, I would imagine, of these countries. That's a big part of it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we often talk about the difference between, your standard vacation and, a true nature journey. And, we also use the terminology retreat. And this is really, as far from, what is going to be your average vacation. I mean, like you mentioned, this is an immersive experience, an authentic experience, really tapping into what is, the authentic roots of the culture and the place in which our travelers are visiting to. And yeah, we spend a lot of time in either living in the locations where we visit or definitely, diving deep into the native culture and to provide, this experience that really gives a clear reflection of what is the authentic culture of the place in which people are visiting, and creating activities that help bring out once again the true nature of the traveler that is on the journey.
One of the things my European friends love to sort of make fun of of Americans, and they'll take little jabs, but there's a stigma about Americans specifically that we don't really for travel as much as we should, or go outside of our environments that we're comfortable with, and not many of us, as many as you would think, hold passports, etc. So I
Yeah.
wonder if you have found in what you do that you are getting more of a transformative situation for someone who maybe comes back from an excursion like this and their eyes are opened, or do you get stories about how it's transformed people thinking about their own existence in accordance with other people who they may not have ever considered how they lived until they met them?
Yes, completely. I mean, this is exactly what keeps us going every day, year after year, doing this work, is really the change and the impact that happens. I mean, the trip itself is one thing and the program is one thing, but it's really actually, I believe what happens when someone returns from these journeys that really, I think, is really our goal. I mean, we're going for the long-term change and impact for those that we touch. So yeah, numerous stories over the years. I mean, with you know, directly with NSLS members and students, a lot of these students, we find a lot of them have never traveled outside the borders of the US. And so for them, it's an extremely eye-opening experience. And a lot of them, are in the middle of their university studies. And we've heard stories of, changing direction of their major, or, really impacting, where they're going to be, seeking jobs, we've had them reach out to us and be like, hey, can I have a connection, with this place in Italy because I'm thinking about going to work, abroad. I've never thought I would do this. So that is very common. And then, with our adult travelers, similar, like lots of stories of changing jobs, changing locale, wanting to meet people outside of the US. And so a lot of change comes from these trips. And it's exciting to me. I mean, it's really really at the root, I would say, of the mission and of the journey of True Nature is wanting people to just look outside their box, their container, what like their everyday life they think it is, and realize that the world is really limitless, and they're really limitless. And so these experiences hopefully just help plant seeds or water seeds of their dreams that they have.
Yeah, that's so important because I can remember being a child and we didn't have a family that traveled a lot. Like, I mean, we took road trips. We would drive back and forth between Virginia, where we were, where we were all from,
Yeah,
and New Jersey. But I didn't take my first flight till I was 23, and that was to Puerto Rico. And it felt like I had left the country, but I didn't. So it was like very safe.
yeah,
But you're right. Europe, for example, definitely changed my perspective about the world. The one thing I noticed was that automatically, as an American, I did, like every other American at that time, probably made the assumption that everyone spoke English, right? I'm in France and I'm wondering why aren't they speaking English?
yeah,
Those sorts of things that, something as simple as that, you just go, oh, well, because America is not the only thing that exists. So I think it's definitely an eye opener for so many reasons as far as how a person views themselves and views the world. Now, I know you actually started this in 2000. Well, actually, we began in Costa Rica as a location, and the first retreat was in 2003, I believe.
yeah. So we founded True Nature began as a facility. We began as a intentional community and learning center, and so we actually purchased the property in 2003, and and our first year actually was a lot of listening to the land, taking things very slowly. We took a very contemplative approach to the development of the property, and really in 2004 actually was our first program, and I co-led a college course on sustainable community development, and that was the beginning. So we were on the land at first, and that's really where I learned about the facilitation of programs, also tending to land and to community, and those first 7 years were really um, a big learning curve for myself and our partners in the project. And from there, we started off with this college course. We had a few other colleges, and then we began to expand. We started having courses on environmental sustainability and yoga, meditation, nonviolent communication. We started having some corporate groups come, and it kind of just began to grow little by little, and in its grassroots way. But that first chapter was quite powerful in Costa Rica.
Yeah, and it's really important too what you just mentioned because there's another lesson there that I don't want anyone to overlook, which is, it began with an idea, it began with a vision. And you said, those first 7 years, everything wasn't perfect, right?
Yeah,
But it was moving forward and being implemented. And I think that to see where it's gone today that's a prime example of just being proactive when you have an idea about something and going forward with it,
yeah,
and seeing where it takes you, right? Because now you have this wonderful brand. Now you also talk about, you mentioned mindfulness as well, but this idea of mindfulness meditation, and it seems pretty on the surface explanatory, but I would love for you to share what is meant by mindfulness meditation.
I define mindfulness as intentional awareness in the present moment without judgment. And my favorite piece of that description is actually the without judgment piece, because naturally, especially our Western minds here in America, we love to judge, we love to critique, and instead of just observe, and recognize and allow, which are kind of some concepts in mindfulness. So, I mean, asking mindfulness meditation, I mean, it's a big question. Um, I A little bit of background. I was first introduced to mindfulness when I was a teenager, and my grandmother gave me this book called "Be Here Now" by Ram Dass, which maybe some of your listeners know of. If not, it's a pivotal book on my journey. And it basically, the gist of this big, thick blue book was just the title, just "Be Here Now," and I was quite fascinated um, early on, just in wow, the idea of just we could just be here now. And um, and because in this culture there's constantly so much planning for the future, our task list, one thing after another, constant like looking at the past and judging what has happened. And mindfulness is really about just being right here, right now. And mindfulness meditation itself, there's plenty of instructions. There's various kind of forms of mindfulness, but the basis is focused on the breath and focused on just being aware of your inhalation and exhalation. And it kind of starts there. And once we become aware of our breath, helps us to bring us slowly into presence. And from there we can kind of open up our senses from that point, opening up our vision, our sense of hearing, our sense of smell, and just opening up to really the vast expansiveness of the present moment. Um, and I'll just say that, mindfulness, and along with many meditations, it's often referred to as a practice. And it's really important to understand that mindfulness, it's a practice. It's not easy. It's simple, the instructions, but it's a practice. And it takes time, energy, and even though I've been practicing for 20 some years, um, one of the instructions is also often to come at mindfulness with the innocence of a child. So as you come to meditation, no matter if it's your first time or you've been doing it for 20 years, come at it as if it's your first time today. Like, here we are, I'm going to sit down, I'm talking to Corey, I'm following my breath, I'm aware of what's going on, and I'm going to be as present as possible right here and right now.
Mm. That is so powerful because you are right. We get wrapped up by all the distractions and uh, this sort of constant hamster wheel of going after things more and more and more and more and more, and we're on our devices, and we don't get a chance to really unplug and just be sort of in the moment with ourselves without a distraction. So I find that so many people to this day, they really don't know themselves because they haven't had exactly what you just said, that moment of like stillness, calmness, right? Visualizing what they want in life, what they don't want in life, who they are, where they've been. I mean, all those things. And I've done that in recent years, and I see a better clarity,
Mm,
in life for having done that.
yeah.
So, I mean, it's almost like it's a clinical thing people should do.
Yeah, and it's becoming more and more clinical. There's so much research been done on mindfulness over the past decade, and I have plenty of friends that are doctors that practice mindfulness and prescribe mindfulness before they're prescribing medications these days. Just like, hey, find a mindfulness teacher, start a practice. There's plenty of awesome apps out there. There's so many tools right now to support people and in creating a more mindful lifestyle, which is that's what it is. It's a really a way of being. But it starts with the simple practice of just finding a way to ground and follow the breath and slow down and disconnect. I'll often say disconnect in order to connect. We're so connected by these devices all the time, but really we need to really begin to disconnect from all these devices so we can reconnect with ourselves, reconnect with our own innate presence.
Yes, yes. Well, I know you are a musician as well, so I know you'll appreciate that. I am as well, and I wrote a song a few years back called "Technology and Computer Parts," and the line was, "Technology and computer parts cannot replace the human heart." That was like
Mm,
sort of like one of the lines in there, and so as you're talking, I'm like, exactly that. I feel it, I know it, and I completely agree with you. And just staying with mindfulness for a moment. Um, on a bigger scale, when it comes to interaction with other humans, I want to just kind of take it to another level. I began to think about this a couple of days ago when it comes to tumultuous race relations between people, or problems with ethnic groups, and whatever those adversities are that we're sort of facing a lot on the rise in this world. And I was walking down the street, and a woman, I think an Asian woman, was walking by me, and we stopped and said hello and smiled or something and just kept going. And in that moment, for whatever reason, I thought about she's someone's grandmother, she's someone's
Mm,
aunt, she's someone's mom. I saw her just in a quick moment. I just took a moment to see the humanity in this person I just passed by. And I began to think of how we that might be the core of why we have so many problems because we're not doing that. We're not seeing the humanity. And I kind of hear a lot of what you're saying when you talk about mindfulness. Do you see a correlation there as
yeah.
well?
Yeah, I mean, it's often said that mindfulness is not only a concentration based practice, but it's also a compassion based practice. And studies show that when you practice mindfulness, when you slow down, when you find the breath, when you calm your mind, it actually it opens a part of the mind that actually connects with the heart. And so when we slow down, I think your experience is very common, that we begin to see the interconnectedness, not only with ourselves and the world, but with one another. We begin to see that, wow, like we it doesn't matter the color of our skin or where we're coming from or what we do, or we are all interconnected. And so I think that these practices, and there's actually practices, there's a practice called metta, which means loving kindness in the language of Pali. And that is a mindfulness practice that's directly correlated towards compassion. And in that meditation, you come to a space of stillness, a space of calm, and then you offer this calm and this peace and this loving kindness to other beings. And so I completely agree, and I feel it. When you know I like to say, I've heard one of my teachers taught me one time that there's a Chinese, in the Chinese script, the Chinese script for, if you try to find a Chinese script for busy, it literally is broken down to heart killing, something along these lines. So actually, the busyness of the culture actually is in many ways shuts down our heart, right? Shuts down our sense of connection. That's why there's so much isolation. That's why there's so much anxiety, so much depression. And so when we do these practices, we become more mindful, we slow down, instead of that heart killing, it's heart nourishing or heart nurturing that's happening. And so you know I'm right there with you. I mean, I could go on and on, but yes, I think definitely direct correlation between mindfulness and compassion and connection. And yes.
And you bring up a point too when you tie that into again going the clinical route, and that ties into our actual physical health,
Yeah.
right? So by having all that stress and continually like sort of chasing the next big thing, we are lessening our time here on earth in many cases. And I think that's why if you look at the Far East and different parts of the world where they do take philosophies like the one you just mentioned to heart as a main practice, they live longer.
Yeah.
Like far longer than than we do. Um, so yeah, so for anyone listening, I'm just saying, you want to live a little bit longer, cut some of the cut some of the stress out of your life, and disconnect a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to ask you because you do seem not seem you are clearly very enlightened and advanced in your philosophies on these sorts of things, right? I mean, and how they correlate to life experiences, the interconnectivity to people. I'm curious to know though, were you always this way? Like you're from Los Angeles originally, so your background, how did you evolve to be where you are now with that sort of level of clarity of enlightenment?
I'm happy in our short discussion you're finding some enlightenment. I won't say it's me. I would say I still have plenty of issues, and I'm still trying to figure out this wild ride on planet Earth. Just like you are, just like we all are. And yes, I grew up in LA. I would not say I was born with this awareness that I continue to seek. But I think maybe quite the opposite. I think maybe growing up in the big city, growing up like in the shadow of Hollywood with lights, and everyone striving to build up this sense of what they think is self, which I maybe look at as ego. I think it drove me to being a teen that felt isolated and felt disconnected. I didn't really feel like I was in the right place. I was often, everyone was like hanging out at the beach or on the Hollywood Strip, and I was hanging out in the Santa Monica Mountains, just, hiking and trying to figure out my own self. So I think really sometimes our journeys in life and sometimes some of the harder elements of our life, I think then kind of push us in opposite directions. So, once I was out of high school, I left LA immediately, went for, uh, literally greener pastures up in Oregon where I went to school at first. And I think, really the natural environment was the first thing that began to teach me. And it's fitting that the company I run is called True Nature, but really the true nature of the Northwest began my journey, and I just found so much solace in the rivers and the mountains and in hiking, and also when there's a lot of nature around. Again, I feel like people begin to naturally just slow down, and they're focused more on what's around them and the environment and spending time outdoors, and that was the beginning. And then I would just say, I mean, I mentioned that book Be Here Now that my grandmother actually gave me when I was 16. So I also definitely think um, I've always kept my eyes open to those that have crossed my path and just been aware of I feel like we all have something to teach each other. And I've just from the time I've been young, and especially when I left LA, I just took note of all, if it's a teacher or if it's a friend, or even if it's someone I just come across walking down the street, just try to keep my eyes open and learn from people. And I feel like I've been really blessed to just come across some great reflections that have guided my journey, and continue to just like remind myself that I'm doing all right. I'm taking one step at a time, and that there's a lot to learn in the world, and just trying to keep an open heart, open mind, and just be here now, be present as much as possible.
Joshua Canter, thank you so much for being here today and sharing so much that gives me a lot to think about. And I know our audience will have a lot to think about as well. And we're going to make sure, obviously, that new members who don't know about you can also find out more about True Nature and how they can get involved and maybe apply to go on some of these excursions with your group. So thanks for being here today on Motivational Mondays.
Hey, thanks, Corey. Really a pleasure to be with you.